Cool. Thank you for coming along this afternoon, everyone. I'm pretty excited for today's topic, which is all about AI and content. And we're joined by Katie Taylor Thompson, who is a content marketer specializing in content services for agencies and SMEs. And she's been quite hot on the topic of AI and content for a while and gave a similar talk in Brighton SEO in April. So she's well versed in this area, and I'm quite excited because it's been a buzzword for the last couple of weeks. So be good to learn more about this topic. In terms of format, I will pass over to Katie shortly, where she'll give like a 15-20 minute presentation, and then we'll jump into a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, just pop them into the chat box or the Q&A section thing, and then we'll get to them in the second part of this. And I'm Christina. If you're new here, I run the Content UK community, which is a community for UK content marketers. Cool. I will pass over to Katie.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so content writers, will AI take your job? So yes, as Christina said, this is something covered the October Brighton SEO, the one just passed. Well, obviously we've been seeing people talk about it a lot on LinkedIn and on Twitter at the moment. So it's a really pertinent time to talk about this topic. So I'm very excited to take it on again. There we go. So first things first, yes, why are we talking about it? Well, obviously because everyone is discussing it on various social media at the moment, but also for us, when I say us, that's me and my tech support / husband / data visualization, Craig. It's the two of us. We, in the past sort of year, we've had clients coming to us talking about it a little bit more. Some saying, actually, rather than writing from scratch, can you take this AI content and sort of finesse it? And we also had people coming up to us at the Brighton SEO in April this year saying, oh, you're a content writer. Well, why don't you get AI to write it for you? And we're like, obviously, we're not going to do that. We'll be out of a job. So there was a couple of kind of reasons why I pitched to talk about it at Brighton in October. But on top of that, obviously, I think it's just been a big topic all year. People remember these really creepy DALL-E pictures. Now moving forward, we've got things like Lensa AI. And just the general kind of buzz about it. So we've got bad examples like Ukraine's been waging for 2 years now. We've got really long examples of people are talking about it and sort of the future of it. We've got people talking about it in a positive sense, saying it's going to revolutionize content writing, and more and more and more and more and more. It's everywhere. And then, of course, just in the last couple of weeks, we've got people talking about ChatGPT as well. This is a screenshot I've just stolen today from Twitter from a guy called Matt Bennett. He is really passionate about this. And he's just shown a graph here from Google Trends about people talking about it. So it's obviously a very hot topic. But perhaps we should just go back to the beginning and actually discuss what AI is, particularly in the context of writing content. Go back one. So AI, just like it would on something like your Apple Watch or a self-driving car, it works off the inputs that we give it. So for example, if I'm telling Apple Watch that I'm running a 9-minute mile, then it'll assume that that's my speed sort of thing. But in the context of writing content, it's the information I give it will affect the outputs that it eventually produces. So going back in time, the first evidence of AI was in the 50s when a group of chaps got together at university and they tried to make a rule-based love letter generator. So it was really, really simple, really small set of parameters. They basically just said, okay, insert verb here, insert adjective here. So it might be like, I love you. You are bootylicious or whatever, something like that. Then as time moved on in the 60s, there's something called Eliza, where you could have more sort of a chat with the bot, kind of like with the ChatGPT we're seeing now. And then even further later on, 70s and 80s, that was kind of like a preliminary test for the Turing test, which is basically you trying to determine if you're talking to a human or to a computer. And then fast forward even more to 2020, we have GPT-3. So GPT-3, or Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3, it's really, really nascent. It was launched by OpenAI in 2020. Now that is slightly funded by Microsoft and obviously slightly funded by Elon Musk as well, because obviously he had something to do with it. And what this does is it uses deep learning. So drawing on massive data sets, things like whole English language dictionaries, millions of books, looking through all Wikipedia entries, and it essentially gets the information and processes it a lot faster. And whereas things like that machine in the 50s had sort of about, let's say, 50 parameters, GPT-3 has 175 billion parameters. Then when we say parameters or nodes, what this is basically, if you imagine sort of like a decision tree, if I were to say to an AI, tell me some facts about Winston Churchill, it would scour the internet looking for facts about him. And it might say, find 5 articles mentioning him and carrots, but it might find 500,000 articles mentioning him and World War II. So because of that weighting, it's more likely to come up with outcomes talking about World War II and Winston Churchill than it is to talk about Winston Churchill and carrots. So thinking about it in the modern day, we now see AI used in content writing apps. Obviously, we've talked about ChatGPT, but the one we're going to focus on today is Jasper.ai, which you may have played with before. So we decided to test Jasper.ai out, which essentially can write your content for you. And we signed up, accidentally paid £400 for the privilege, but luckily we got refunded. And we were quite impressed initially with sort of range of functions that you could offer. So you've got things like documents, commands, content improver, you can write a blog post introduction or conclusion, even things like video topic idea. So I was quite impressed initially by the diverse range of content that it could produce. So we decided to put it into practice. Number one, I must admit, I was a little bit pig-headed about it and didn't want to think a machine could take my job. So I tried a blog post intro paragraph and I put sex tips for virgins. And I made the audience teenage boys. And I thought, well, I'll make the tone of voice friendly. And the result I got was a little bit interesting. It said, are you a teenage boy who is still a virgin? If so, don't worry. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Okay, that's not a really good start. If I'm a teenage boy and I'm looking for sex tips, if you're going to start talking to me about, chlamydia kind of Mean Girl style, that's probably going to put me off. For reference, here's what the actual first Google result looks like when you Google that. So you can see it's just a lot more of a human kind of empathetic approach there. So, okay, right, we'll stop mucking around. We'll try another test. So I thought I'd write a company bio. And I made up a company called Jenny's Ice Cream. And I said, Jenny's makes yummy ice cream and has done since 2008. And I made the tone of voice stern to see if it make any difference. And the result I got was pretty good. It said, since 2008, Jenny's Ice Cream's been churning out delicious artisanal ice cream. It's fresh, all natural ingredients, a whole lot of love. It was quite, a friendly, welcoming opening paragraph. But if you look a little bit closer, it's making some claims here. For example, it says all natural ingredients. It says it's independently owned, and it says there's absolutely nothing artificial. Now, all I've told it is Jenny makes yummy ice cream and has done since 2008. So essentially, that is fake news. So it's something to think about there, particularly if we're talking about those sort of your money or your life content sites. So I thought, okay, right, let's give it a little bit more input. So I said, let's do a homepage for my own website. So I said, right, Katie Lingo, we provide outsourced content marketing services for agencies and small businesses. And I said, let's make the tone of voice funny because we try to be sort of humorous where we can. And the result I got was, okay, agencies and small businesses who want to outsource their content marketing, but don't want to sacrifice quality or funny. Doesn't really make sense. That's not even a noun. The second one is a content marketing solution for agencies and small businesses who want to get funny. That's not really what I meant there. So you can see here, it's kind of confused the tone of voice with the general content itself. So it's not completely infallible. So I thought, okay, I'll give it an even better input and we'll see if we get a better output. So I said, outsource content marketing, train journalists, train marketers, data visualization. We're not the cheapest. We don't do video. And the result I got was, I would say, a lot better. We work with agencies, we do things properly. We're not cheap. We're good value for money. We drive results. So all in all, I would say I was quite pleased with that result. It's a little bit me. First rule of copywriting is to make it about the reader, not about you. But generally, I would say that was a decent result considering what I gave it. So with that in mind, we can't discount all the benefits of AI. So let's look at where it can help. Right. Sorry, I was just looking at the chat there. I just saw it was Dom saying maybe AI can help with this. Okay, so number one, where can it help us? Well, let's think about editing. I'm sure as writers, we all have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Grammarly, but it is quite good for initially spotting those clangers. So if I've accidentally written TOO instead of TO, it's going to tell me that. But at the same time, just get some really basic things wrong. So I might say I've got 10 years experience. We know the apostrophe is a plural, so it goes after yes, and it tells me it's wrong. So use it at your peril and make sure that you've got that human intervention as well. Second, coming up with ideas. I'm sure as writers, we all can come up against writer's block at one point or another. So it's a really great way of just coming up with briefs. One tool that we like to use here is ClearScope. So if I put in a keyword, let's say things to do in Paris, then it might tell me all the things that are ranking and then give me some ideas based on what's already doing well on Google. It's the same with Jasper AI as well. That gives you some blog post ideas if you are really struggling. But even if these are just an initial sort of seed, we can use these as a springboard into meetings with actual humans. Then it's a great way of just sort of getting off the ground. Next up, not necessarily writing itself, but transcription. The lovely Megan Downs did a post about how she was using AI on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, that's shocking. But actually, as a transcription tool, it's really helpful. I do a lot of interviews. One of my clients I work for is Reuters, and I have to interview people in real time, and I'm sitting there writing notes really, really, really fast, and it's kind of sort of disturbing the flow of conversations. So something like Otter.ai can transcribe things for you, and you can really focus. And when you read it back, it can even tell you who's speaking. Now, it's not completely infallible. It will get words wrong. Quite funny sometimes, the outputs that you get, but generally it can save you time if you're willing to go through it with a fine-tooth comb afterwards. Sadly, there is also a market for just not very good content. There'll always be that sort of bottom of the barrel content. So there might just be people who are looking to exploit young, inexperienced writers, or indeed exploit free tools. So some people might say something like, well, product descriptions don't need to be War and Peace. They don't need to be incredible. They just need to be available. Others might try to rank very quickly with AI content. So they might just want to get to the top of Google, let's say, for hotels in Paris, but they should do that at the peril, because Google, as we know, is getting smarter all the time. So in this next slide, I'm hoping the sound works. I did a little interview with a guy called Dan Callis. He is a freelance SEO, and he's very passionately anti-AI, and this is what he has to say about Google and AI content.
Can't hear it, unfortunately.
Okay, fair enough, you can't hear it. Right. How do I stop him? He is saying the reason that Google is struggling with AI content is because, hang on, I'm going to let him talk. Okay, right, I can shut up. Basically, what he said here is that the reason Google is struggling to detect AI content at the moment is because there just simply isn't enough of it out there. We can see people are really only just starting to talk about it. It's been around for a couple of years, but it's still relatively fresh. But he says that the keyword there is yet, and we need to not have short memories, because we look at things like Panda or Penguin. Google is always going to crack down on low quality content. And just as some examples here, if you look at those last three examples that I used in Jasper.ai, all three of them say, so if you're looking for some help, so if you're looking for content marketing, so if you're looking for advice how to lose your virginity, these are just three examples where they're actually using the same sort of phrasing, because it's just drawing on information that's already out there. And if I can recognize those patterns just as a human, what's Google going to be able to do? So it's something we should be really wary of just in future if we are going to try this sort of churn and burn approach by trying to rank with AI content. So with that in mind, where exactly does AI fail? Well, you saw there that I interviewed Dan. So getting information straight from the horse's mouth, again, things like Reuters, I spent all day today writing up interviews. You can't get that information at the source. And AI is based on sort of garbage in, garbage out. So if I give it poor information to start with, then it's going to give me a bad output, which could land you in some hot water. For example, with things like fact checking. This is another example that Dan gave me. He drew my attention to Zoe Ashbridge on LinkedIn, and she basically said that one search result on Google had one statistic, there were 8 results. The first 8 results on Google were all quoting the wrong stat. So if AI is just going to pull information from stuff like that that's ranking and it's wrong, you could really get yourself into hot water. Why does this matter? Well, it comes down to reader trust. So another thing we do is we report on the Reuters digital news report every year. And 2020 said that 37% of us were felt that they were given misleading information about COVID-19. So that could be spread by people, or indeed, if AI is drawing on this content that is essentially wrong, that's just going to help proliferate fake news. Another one, not as serious, but nevertheless something to consider, is live content. So we all remember sort of the resignations over summer, or however many prime ministers we've had this year, or even, bless her, the Queen's death. There are events that are happening in real time, and AI content is drawing stuff that's already happened. So if we want to do something like live blogging, live tweeting, we can't do that. So we need humans to intervene. Not the end of the world, but we might be missing out on huge opportunities like social media. Let's get a little bit of a conversation going there. Another one, again, not as important, but I'd argue if you actually want people to engage with your content, you really do need some personality in there. So you might have a particular tone of voice. You might be very formal. You might be very informal. You might have some house style guidelines. So, for example, you might spell e-commerce with a capital C or a dash or whatever, or hyphen, sorry. And creativity as well. We are writing today about relationships and something that people use as sort of pop cultural references. So like, we were on a break, Ross from Friends, and AI isn't going to be able to do that. And then, of course, there's the personal experience. So, for example, I'm a marathon runner and I write for a running client, and I could talk about my own personal stories there, which an AI can't do. So we've looked at the good, we've looked at the bad. What are the other points to ponder with AI? Big one. I don't think anyone got this in the room at SEO when I had Jeff Goldblum, but the idea that nobody stopped to question whether or not they should do it just because they could do it, from Jurassic Park, obviously. So AI is affected by our own inputs, and therefore it's affected by human bias, which means it opens it up to all sorts of abuse, particularly with racism, sexism. So just a few examples here. On Google News, we see like word embedding saying like man is the doctor, whereas woman is the homemaker, which isn't ideal. There was a case of on LinkedIn search, if you typed in Stephanie, it would say, do you mean Stephen? And there was even a case for Twitter bot. They tried to make it emulate human activity, and within 24 hours, it started spouting sort of pro-Nazi hate speech. So it's all based on humans, and humans just aren't very nice. So we need to be careful with that. We also need to consider index issues. So in prep for this talk, I was speaking to Matt Bennett, who I mentioned before, and Danny Richman, and they were both talking about AI at Brighton as well. And they mentioned a Reddit thread talking about Bing, wherein somebody used AI content to make loads of blog posts, and they just launched a site, and it all got indexed by Bing, and it was absolutely fine. But then within a matter of days, suddenly it was being flagged as spam and could no longer be indexed. And the theory was, and it's just a theory, was that because Bing is owned by Microsoft, Microsoft have invested in OpenAI, perhaps somehow Microsoft knows that it's AI. So it's something to think about. It could potentially be a sign of things to come with things being penalized. Another one is, well, if we're using it to actually try and rank, does it even rank? So here's a screenshot from ClearScope, something we use to get ideas for content. And what I did is I used that Jasper AI tool to put some blog content into here about running. And just based on the keyword sort of distribution here, you can see it gave me a grade F. Whereas I went in and I didn't do any kind of research. I just went in and wrote it completely from my own personal experience as a marathon runner, and you can see I got a C+. Now, if I'd gone back again and sort of optimized it with all of its suggestions, I would have gotten an A-, obviously. But just with the same number of words, you can see a human input is much better than a machine one. And then just for fun, this isn't as new as it was in October when I was talking about it, but Google came along with this helpful content update. So basically, that means that we need to help people with new information. So the example that they give here is movie reviews. So if I want to see if a movie's good, if all I'm reading is just regurgitated reviews of the same movie, that's not actually going to help me. So Google's going to penalize that content because it's not unique. We don't know much about it at the moment, other than it does apply site-wide. So again, it's something to think about. We might be penalised later on. It does need first-hand expertise, particularly with things like product reviews or just your own sort of storytelling there. Again, quality content should always be for humans, not just, okay, let's just put in a lot of long tail keywords or FAQs. Let's actually make it helpful for people. And it can't just try and game the search engines by being topical. So if I've got a website about ice fishing and I'm just talking about Harry and Meghan because it's topical, Google's going to recognize that, and it's not helpful to the user. So with all of this in mind, where do we go from here? Well, as Dan was telling me, if everyone relies on AI, then the internet is already going to become awash with unoriginal content. And we're kind of already seeing that happening anyway, just with kind of low budget, just copy and paste sort of stuff. And we know that Google is always cracking down. We've seen so many different updates over the years, so it's only going to get stricter. But can we use it to our advantage? Well, we've seen it on things like your Amazon Alexa or your self-driving cars or your Apple Watch. But how can we use it as writers? Well, we need to accept that AI is going to be part of our lives. So it might be a case of, rather than just being straight writers, we might have to edit AI content, as people have asked me to do before. We might have to be more reliant on our own tone of voice guidelines and making sure that we're capturing that kind of humor or formality or whatever we want to do. We might need to be a bit more creative with coming up with ideas. We might use things like ClearScope or Jasper to come up with ideas. And we might have to prove our worth as writers as well, because people might say, well, I can get this done for free. So I won't go into this too much, but here are just a few useful resources you can take away, things to make your writing a little bit better. Hemingway makes things just a bit more accessible. ClearScope and Phrase, obviously, to come up with ideas. Gary Provost, looking at rhythm in your writing, and then my own blog posts. This is why you suck at writing and why you really don't. Some good resources in there just to help your writing and always sort of accelerate your learning. Sorry, I'm going a little bit over time, so I'll round it up. Do's and don'ts, please check your facts and make sure you're citing relevant sources, like things like the World Health Organization. If you are going to use AI content, make sure you sense check it. Keep sticking to those Google quality guidelines. They're only going to get stricter. We can't game it. And if you are going to use tools, don't be afraid of them. Just use them to complement your existing content, like things like spell checkers or coming up with ideas. With the helpful content, bear in mind that you shouldn't just be regurgitating the same thing. So if someone's asking when's the next Netflix series out, don't just be like, Stranger Things was released in 2015, blah, 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 and not actually answer the question, because it will drive people nuts. Likewise, make sure you pad out your articles with things like multiple links to show you've actually done your research. Don't rely on AI just to churn out loads of crap, because eventually, hopefully, Google will recognize it. And just acknowledge the fact that things do change. Google is getting more clever, but we shouldn't be afraid of these changes. We should embrace them. Yeah, that is all from me. Sorry about the technical issues, and thank you very much for your patience and for watching. And I'm ready to take the floor for any questions.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thanks so much, Katie. So much crammed into that.
I know, and the technical, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, don't worry. It always happens. It'd be weird if it didn't. Do you mind just flicking off your slides, actually?
Yeah.
See your face.
Sure. Boom.
There she is.
I had a tiny little bar in the middle there saying start, and I don't know if you could see it, but yeah.
Oh, no, we couldn't see it. Don't worry. It was all
Excellent.
clear.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. As we said, if anyone has questions, just drop them into the chat and we'll get to them. But I'll start with a few of my own.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, in your job, on your day-to-day in your week, which tools are you using, and at what stage of your process you use them? I know you referenced a few, but how are you using them yourself?
As very much have a love-hate relationship with Grammarly. I kind of have this sort of filtration process of when I've written something, it's Grammarly first to get those 2s and 2s. No, Hemingway first to make sure that it's a nice low readable grade, then Grammarly. Then I'll listen through to it after I've kind of got rid of any clangers, and then I'll put it into Google Drive as well, because I feel like Google is a little bit more human than Grammarly. And then obviously I'll just do a final check. So it's kind of like a 5-stage. It's slow, but it's human. So yeah, definitely tools for sort of spell checking. But also ClearScope, I'm beginning to rely on a lot more. We're doing a few sort of content velocity projects, they're calling them, wherein we're coming up with clusters. I think I talked about the relationship website we're doing at the moment. So all sorts of different things like what to do in a long distance relationship, date night ideas, stuff like that. So just helping me come up with ideas based on what's already ranking, but putting my own spin on it. So yeah.
And are you using anything like the Jasper AI or ChatGPT in your workflow, or more experimenting?
I would say experimenting. I think before the chat, we were saying that ChatGPT at the moment seems to be mainly for people's amusement on social media. I haven't heard of anyone actually using it for anything productive. I would definitely experiment with it, and I think with the experiments I tried there are some merits to it. But no, not to create content from scratch. I might be editing content that's been written by that, but no. And I think another point is that I think it's 2018. All the OpenAI content is only drawing on content from up to 2018. So anything in the last sort of 4 years, of which there have been quite a few events, it's going to essentially be out of date. One of the examples I gave you before was I asked it to write a bio on my favorite singer, God rest his soul, Meatloaf, and it said all this stuff in the present tense, but didn't reference the fact that he died this year because it's drawing on content that is out of date.
Yeah, that is pretty far back. So no knowledge of COVID-19 or the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw there, the war in Ukraine has been raging for 2 years now. Where the hell's it got that from? It's just made that up, So
yeah, okay, that's a very interesting point. And Dominic just said, right now, ChatGPT is at capacity.
Is it?
Well, as in, like, no one can sign up. Is that what you mean, Dom?
Right.
Oh, he's signed up.
Oh, I can't. That's interesting. Well, I mean, we've seen so much stuff on LinkedIn in the past week. I don't want to say I'm getting bored with it, because the more people who mock it, the happier I feel. I'm trying to be balanced with it, but feeling mildly threatened, but not really, because it's just quite amusing. I think my husband the other day wrote to it, "Why does my wife stink?" And it just said, you shouldn't be horrible to your wife, and you shouldn't be asking me these questions or something. Which was nice.
That was pretty good advice from ChatGPT.
I thought so. Yeah.
It's interesting with like the Jasper ones, because I know a few founders that I've been speaking to that are definitely not marketers, and their next strategy is to just use Jasper AI to churn out loads of SEO content that they know no one's going to read.
Again, I don't really understand what's in it for them, other than, okay, yes, they might get to the top of Google, but then you hear of people talking about sort of zero-click search, where, all right, so maybe that has answered my question, but what's the purpose of the website? Do you actually want people to buy your product or download your PDF or whatever? If you're literally if there's nothing engaging to actually pull them in and make them click, because it is just regurgitated AI crap, then again, that churn and burn approach. And it's not just about SEO either. A lot of the content I've shared before, I'll put it on LinkedIn and have a bit of a discussion about it, and want to kind of provoke a bit of debate. So I wouldn't say that's a long-term strategy. And like Dan said, we need to be mindful of the past.
Yep, I totally agree. Okay. I'm sure Google's definitely going to start penalizing pretty soon, more harshly.
I hope so. Keep us on our jobs.
I had a question from Sachin from before, and he was asking, what skill set do you think is most valuable for content people in a world of increasingly sophisticated AI writing?
I would say research, to have that inquiring mind. And we can all do a kind of cursory Google search, but actually really diving deep, making sure you get to those primary sources, and going out there and interviewing people. So within that, you need to have sort of people skills, you need to have confidence, and you need to have curiosity. It's easy for a machine just to go and get 50,000 articles, but actually it's never going to get anything new straight from the horse's mouth. If I'm sitting here and as I say, when I work for Reuters, I do interview people at, say, T-Mobile or Colgate or whatever, just off the top of my head. And that's not out there on the internet. And that's just me having an organic conversation with someone. So research skills and that, inquisitive mind, I'd say. Yeah.
For now. And then soon they'll have like robots that are asking live questions to people.
Yes.
And what are you most excited about in the space of AI and content? What do you think's coming up? next?
Proving AI wrong and that humans are the best. No. I guess I'm intrigued to see how much more human it can become. But I guess in terms of where I'm using it most, again, other than the spell checking, because I don't think you can really develop that much unless it's a case of bringing in new words like lol or emoji or whatever. I guess just with coming up with new ideas, because if we are just seeing all this regurgitated content on the internet, okay, how is AI going to come up with new ideas that if it's able to do that, I'm excited to see. And it's fine for it to come up with the ideas as long as I'm writing about them and getting paid for that. We shall see.
Yeah, very interesting. Question from Dom. What is the risk of running an experiment where I human write an article and AI write an article to see which performs better? A client asked we do 5 out of 10 articles to get some kind of result.
I think there are a few risks. First of all, on the AI side, the fact checking. For example, if they did ask you to write about Ukraine and you got that thing that came back saying the war's been raging for 2 years now, if your client for whatever reason didn't check that and just published it, they're going to look really silly. But equally, there could be the risk for writers if for whatever reason, and Don, I'm not saying you are, but if you make a spelling mistake, obviously the machine's not going to get it wrong. It might highlight any grammar or spelling errors. We all have bad days as writers. I guess, I think there are risks to both sides, really. But I do think the humans will win. Obviously, I'm going to say that just because you can put that personality in there. Whereas from the AI results I've seen, it's very kind of dry. There's no kind of storytelling element to it. I do think that's a bit of a buzzword, but it's ubiquitous in content marketing at the moment.
It'll be interesting to see how that experiment goes.
Okay.
I wonder how many people are going to be that naive of just posting AI content without doing the fact checking.
Well, this is it.
People actually posting that.
We talk about our roles kind of evolving as editors, but then you've got to ask yourself, well, am I putting just as much time and resource into checking this as I would have done as just writing it from scratch? So I don't see if there's much of a business case for AI in that sense. But I hope people aren't cavalier with it, and I hope they really do check everything they put out there.
Yeah, I hope so. What questions did we have? Any tips for content marketers to stay on top of all the AI developments?
I think definitely get on Twitter. The 2 people, I keep naming them because they are my absolute heroes for making that presentation, are Matt Bennett, I think it's 1T, Matt M-A-T, cat's that on, and Danny Richmond. They are very often tweeting about AI, so if you want to keep your finger on the pulse, I'd follow those 2, and just generally social media, really, LinkedIn as well, but make sure you're following the right people, not just the echo chamber of people saying, oh, look what I made ChatGPT do.
That is literally 90% of my LinkedIn this week.
Oh, it's great fun, sure.
Cool. Any final words of wisdom or parting tips or advice on the topic?
I would just say, don't be scared. We talk about Google updates, and even with a helpful content update, Google's always wanted content to be high quality, and people were always feeling threatened by machines in one way or another. But there are so many points of failure, and even things like, I don't know, checkout machine at Tesco Express are going to annoy you, and people are always, if they are a worthwhile client, they're going to value your high quality research and writer skills, and if they don't, then they're not worth working with. So don't stress.
Very true. Hope so. Well, I think sounds like our jobs are safe for a while yet.
Please.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you for coming along, everyone. This will be uploaded to the Learning Hub next week, so you can watch it there and get all the slides. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
A good break as well.
Yes, you too. Take care.
Take care.
Merry Christmas. Bye.